In 1965, a father in Peoria, Illinois, kept 3 grades of steel wool in a coffee can on his workbench, and with them he did the work of a dozen products his son now buys in separate bottles. A rusted tool, a dull brass lamp, a white ring on the good dining table, a stripped screw, a mouse hole by the basement pipe. He fixed all of it with a pad of steel wool and a little know-how. His neighbors drove to the store and bought a new spray for every job. He reached into the coffee can on the shelf above his bench. The way he lifted a white heat ring out of a finish without harming the wood is number 6 on this list. And the one thing that Father knew about steel wool that could burn a house down, the thing almost nobody is taught anymore, is number 1. He was not a rare man. In 1965, there was a dad like him in half the garages in America, a man who knew that one cheap thing, understood well, beat a shelf of costly ones. He did not think of it as tricks. He thought of it as knowing his tools all the way down. He knew the grades by feel, coarse to strip, fine to polish, and he knew exactly which one each job wanted before he ever reached for the can. We traded that away for a cabinet of single-use sprays and pads, each one sold for a single task and forgotten in a drawer by the next year. That knowledge did not die because it stopped working. A pad of steel wool works today exactly as it did in 1965, and it outlasts most of what has been sold to replace it. It died because there is no money in a man who already owns the answer and knows how to use it. Number 14 clears a haze off glass that people pay to replace whole windows over, and it costs almost nothing. Number 6 is the one from the top of this story, lifting a white heat ring cleanly out of a finish. And number 1 is not a trick at all. It is the single thing every one of these dads knew about steel wool, the thing that separates a useful tool from a house fire. And once you know it, every other trick here is safe. These 20 tricks were never about steel wool. They were the mark of a man who knew one humble, cheap thing so completely that it replaced a whole cabinet of expensive ones. Not a product, a skill. Every trick on this list that Peoria dad did with his own 2 hands over a working lifetime at that bench. But first, we have to say the thing every one of these dads knew, because this tool can genuinely hurt you if you do not respect it. If that know-how is worth remembering, subscribe and stay to the end, because the last one matters most. Let us count down the 20 lost steel wool tricks every American dad did in the 1960s that nobody teaches anymore. Number 20, knowing the grades. A man grabs 1 pad for every job, scratches something delicate with a coarse one, and blames the steel wool. It comes in grades, and the number on the box is the secret. It runs from coarse grade 4, rough enough for stripping paint, down through the 1s and 2s for general cleaning, to the fine triple-aught and quadruple-aught, so soft it polishes glass without leaving a mark. You match the grade to the job, coarse to strip, fine to finish, and never the other way around. Start finer than you think you need, because you can always step down to coarser, but you cannot unscratch a surface once you have gouged it. For the dad doing careful work, knowing the grades was the whole difference between a clean repair and a ruined finish. Not one tool, a whole family of them. Number 19, lifting rust off tools with oil. A good tool comes out of a damp cellar spotted with rust, and a man scrubs it dry and leaves it scratched. Rust comes off easiest with steel wool and oil, never dry. You put a little machine oil on the metal, take a medium pad, and work with the grain of the steel. The oil floats the rust away and keeps the wool from digging in, and the tool comes up clean and bright. Wipe it dry and leave a thin film of oil on it after, or the rust creeps right back in a damp week. For the dad restoring a rusted old toolbox he inherited, this brought a whole kit back to life in his own 2 hands, without harming a single face or edge. Not a tool you scrape raw. Rust you float off with oil. Number 18, smoothing between coats of finish. A man varnishes a project. The coat dries rough. He puts the next one over it, and the roughness is locked in forever. Between coats, the finest steel wool knocks a finish back to glass. After a coat cures, you rub it lightly with quadruple aught with the grain, and it smooths the raised fuzz and gives the next coat something to grip. Then you wipe off every speck of the steel dust before you recoat. Use it only with oil-based finishes, never water-based, because the tiny shed fibers will rust and ruin a water finish from the inside. For the dad building furniture in that garage, this quiet step between coats was the whole reason his work looked professional where a rushed job looked cheap. Not a finish that stays rough. Fuzz you rub back.
Before we go on, I made something special for you. A guide for men like us who still believe a man should be able to fix his own home. It's the forgotten handyman secrets, the old-fashioned repair tricks our grandfathers used to fix anything around the house and keep it running for life. But these skills are disappearing fast, and once they're gone for good. Don't pay a repairman ever again. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link below. Go ahead, I'll wait right here.
Number 17, polishing brass and copper. A brass lamp or copper pot goes dark and dull, and a man buys a special polish for each that dries up in a drawer. The finest steel wool with a little oil brings soft metals back. You take quadruple aught and a dab of polish or a little oil and rub the brass gently, and the dark tarnish lifts and the warm gold color underneath comes back. Only the very finest grade and a light hand, or you put fine scratches into the soft metal. For the dad with his wife's brass candlesticks going dark on the mantel, this brought back a shine she was sure was gone for good. Not a polish for every metal. One fine pad and a gentle hand. Number 16, erasing black scuff marks. Black heel marks streak a floor, no mop takes them off, and a man scrubs with cleaners that do nothing. A scuff is rubber left behind, and fine steel wool lifts it in a second. You take a fine pad, dry or barely damp, and rub the black mark lightly, and the rubber comes up and the floor is clean again. Test a hidden corner first, and stay to the fine grades, so you lift the scuff and not the floor itself. For the dad with a house full of kids and their shoe marks streaked across the kitchen, this beat any product on the store shelf. Not a floor you replace, rubber you rub away. Number 15, making the dark oak stain in a jar. A man wants new wood to look old and dark, and buys stain after stain that never looks right. The old answer was a reaction older than any can. You drop a pad of steel wool into a jar, cover it with plain white vinegar, let it sit a day or two, and strain it through a coffee filter. Brushed onto oak or any tannin-rich wood, that liquid reacts with the wood itself and turns it a deep, weathered gray-brown. Not a coat of color sitting on top, but a real change down in the grain. Strain out every last particle first, or the leftover steel rusts orange in the wood. For the dad matching a new board to a 100-year-old piece, this jar of vinegar did what no store stain could ever match. Not a color you paint on, a reaction you brew. Number 14, clearing haze off glass. A shower door clouds with mineral haze. No spray cuts it, and a man is told the glass is etched and gone. Plain glass takes the very finest steel wool without a scratch. You wet the glass, take a quadruple-aught pad, and rub the mineral haze in small circles, and the deposits come off, and the glass goes clear again. Only on plain, uncoated glass, and never on coated, tinted, or low-glare windows, because the wool will scratch and haze a coating for good. For the family with a shower door, they were sure was ruined and ready to replace. Minutes with a fine pad made it clear as new. Not a pane you replace, a haze you buff away. Stop the count for a moment, because there is one thing every one of these dads respected that almost nobody warns you about. Fine steel wool burns. Not melts, burns, fast and hot, and it can start on its own. Those fine fibers have so much surface area that a single spark lights them like tinder. So does a bit of static off a dry hand. So do the two terminals of an ordinary 9-volt battery touching a pad, which is exactly why it is a survival fire starter. That same property means a pad left in a drawer with a loose battery can catch fire on its own with no one there. It means you never use it near an outlet, a live wire, or an open flame that could throw a spark. And it means the oily rag and the used steel wool from a finishing job are a genuine fire risk sitting in a wastebasket together, quietly heating up in the dark. The old dads were not casual about this. They kept it away from anything electric, never near batteries, and threw the used bits into a metal can. The tool is wonderful. It is also why shop fires start every year, and the whole difference is in the hands of the man using it. Number 13. Fixing a stripped screw hole. A screw spins in a hole worn too big and will not bite, and a man reaches for a bigger screw. This old carpenter's fix costs nothing. You pull the screw, wrap a small wisp of steel wool around the threads, or pack a bit down into the worn hole, and drive the screw back in. The steel fills the space the wood has lost and gives the threads something solid to bite into again. Use just a wisp, because too much will split the wood or keep the screw from seating. For the dad with a door hinge pulling loose from soft old wood, this wisp of steel held it fast for another 20 years. Not a hole you fill with putty, a thread you give something to grab. Number 12. Blocking a mouse gap the right way. Mice come in through a gap around a pipe, and a man stuffs it with foam they chew through in a week. Mice cannot chew steel, so a packed gap stops them cold. You pack it tight into the hole around the pipe, then seal over it with caulk or foam, and because plain steel wool rusts away, use copper or bronze wool anywhere damp or meant to last. Outdoors, especially, steel wool rusts to nothing in a single season, so copper is the honest choice there. For the family fighting mice in the pantry, a wad of steel packed into the right gap ended it where poison never had. Not a gap they chew through, a metal they cannot. Number 11. Scuffing a surface so paint grips. A man paints over a slick, glossy cabinet, and the paint peels off in sheets within a month. Paint needs a tooth to hold, and fine steel wool gives it one fast. You rub the whole glossy surface with a fine pad until the shine is gone and it feels evenly dull to the hand, then wipe off every speck of dust and paint. The paint grabs the scuffed surface and holds instead of peeling off in sheets. Get every fiber of the steel wool off before you paint, or you will paint rust spots right into the new finish. For the dad redoing the kitchen cabinets, this one step was the difference between a paint job that lasted 10 years and one that failed by spring. Not paint that peels, a shine you knock off first. Number 10. Cleaning the oven racks. Oven racks come out coated in baked-on grease, no spray touches, and a man buys caustic cleaner that fills the house with fumes. Steel wool and hot soapy water do it with no chemicals. You soak the racks in hot soapy water in the tub to soften the grease, then scrub them with a medium pad, and the burnt-on residue lifts away. A little elbow grease and no poison at all. For the family that could not stand the smell of oven cleaner filling the house, this got the racks cleaner than the spray ever did. Not a chemical you breathe, grease you scrub off with soap. Here is the part of his story we have skipped. The Peoria dad did not always respect this tool the way he preached. He learned it the hard way in 1949, young and careless in his first garage. He had spent an evening rubbing an oil finish with fine steel wool, and at the end he swept the used pads and oily rags into a wooden crate and went to bed. He came back the next morning to a scorched wall and a crate of ash and a fire that had gone out on its own only because there was nothing close enough to catch and spread it. It could have been the whole garage and the house behind it and the family asleep inside. An older neighbor who had seen it happen before did not lecture him or shame him. He simply pointed at the crate of ashes and said, the only thing the young man never forgot. That is the tool, son. Respect it, or it burns you out. From that morning on, he never left an oily rag or a used pad in anything but a sealed metal can. And that lesson, the plainest thing about this whole tool, is number 1. Number 9, deburring a fresh cut. A man cuts a pipe and leaves a sharp burr that catches skin and ruins the fit, then digs for a special tool. Fine steel wool knocks a burr down in seconds. You fold a fine pad and run it over the cut edge a few times, and the little sharp fibers of metal or wood roll off and leave a clean, smooth edge. Light pressure only because you are cleaning the edge, not reshaping it. For the dad doing his own plumbing under the sink, this smoothed a cut copper pipe so the fitting slid on clean and sealed the first time. Not a tool you buy to deburr, an edge you knock down fast. Number 8, reviving a tired finish without stripping. A table or chair goes dull and lifeless, and a man assumes it needs a full strip and refinish. Often the finish is fine and just needs cutting back. You rub the whole piece gently with the finest steel wool and a little paste wax, always with the grain and never across it, and it lifts the dead grime and hazy top layer and leaves a soft, even satin glow. It cuts back the tired surface without stripping a thing. For the family with a dull old sideboard they thought was past saving. An hour with fine wool and wax made it look cared for again. Not a piece you refinish, a finish you cut back and revive. Number 7, cleaning an iron and odd metal. An iron gets a brown crust, a cast pan a rough spot, a tool gets gummed up, and a man throws the thing out. Fine steel wool cleans odd metal jobs nothing else touches. On a cool iron, a fine pad rubs the brown scorch and starch off the sole plate. On a stuck spot of a cast pan, medium wool scours it back to bright iron. Know your surface first, and never take steel wool to a non-stick coating or anything plated, or you will destroy it. For the family whose iron dragged and stuck and pulled at every shirt, a minute with fine wool made it glide again. Not an iron you replace, a crust you scour off. Number 6, lifting a white heat ring out of a finish. This is the fix from the top of our story. A hot dish leaves a white ring in a finish, and a man is told the whole top must be stripped. That ring is moisture trapped in the top layer, not damage to the wood, and fine steel wool with oil lifts it out. You take quadruple aught and a little oil and rub the ring gently with the grain, and the trapped moisture and the hazed finish come away, and the clear finish returns underneath. Go slow and light, and stop the moment the ring is gone, so you cut only the haze and not the finish itself. For the family who were sure their walnut table was ruined and ready for the dump, 4 minutes in his hands brought it back. Not a finish you strip, a trapped cloud you rub out. Number 5, touching up scissors and blades. Scissors go dull and gummy, and a man buys a new pair. Cutting through a folded pad of steel wool both cleans and lightly hones the blades. You fold a pad over several times and cut through it a dozen times with the dull scissors, and the fine steel cleans the gum off the edges and puts a light touch-up on them. This is a touch-up, not a real sharpening, but it buys a dull pair a good while more. For the mother whose sewing scissors had gone dull and gummy, a scrap of steel wool gave them back their bite for free. Not scissors you replace, an edge you touch up by cutting. Number 4, keying a slick step for grip. Sometimes you want roughness, not smoothness. A worn stone threshold or a concrete step goes slick and dangerous, and a coarse pad can key the surface. You scrub the slick spot with a coarse pad to rough it up and clean the grime out of the pores, giving a shoe something to grip. Wear gloves for the coarse grades because they will shred your fingertips. For the family with a slick painted porch step that had already caused one hard fall, roughing it up was a 5-minute safety fix. Not a step you repour, a slick surface you key. Number 3, cleaning a sticking key. An old key sticks and grinds in a lock, and a man calls a locksmith. Often the key is just corroded, and fine steel wool cleans it in seconds. You rub the key all over with a fine pad to take off the corrosion and grime built up in the cuts, then wipe it clean and add a touch of dry graphite. Never oil, which gums a lock right up. A cleaned key turns a sticking lock smooth again. For the dad fighting a stubborn back door lock every single morning, a minute of cleaning the key ended it for good. Not a lock you replace, a key you clean. Number 2, keeping a cabinet of cleaners in one coffee can. The real trick these dads knew was not any single use. It was that this one cheap thing in 3 grades replaced a shelf of single-purpose products. A man today owns a rust remover, a glass cleaner, a metal polish, a scuff remover, an oven cleaner, and a deburring tool, each half-used and drying out. The Peoria dad owned 3 grades of steel wool, a can of oil, and a bottle of vinegar, and out of those few cheap things, he did the work of every one of those bottles. He understood one tool deeply instead of owning a tool for everything and understanding none of it. Learn one thing all the way down to the bottom, and it will quietly replace 10 things you barely understand. For the man with a small budget and a small shelf, this was not thrift at all. It was mastery, not a bottle for every job. One tool you know completely. Number 1, respecting that it burns. And it is the thing this whole list has been circling since the first minute. Before any single trick here, the Peoria dad knew one thing about steel wool that mattered more than every use combined. It burns easily, and it can start on its own, and that is the whole difference between a tool and a tragedy. So he never stored it near batteries because 2 terminals touching a pad will light it. He never used it near an outlet, a live wire, or a flame. And he never left used steel wool and an oily rag together in a paper bin, because that combination has burned down more shops than any spark. The used pads and oily rags went into a sealed metal can every time. He did not learn that from a book. He learned it at a scorched wall in 1949 from an older man who pointed at a crate of ashes and said, "That is the tool, son. Respect it or it burns you out. Here is the part worth sitting with. Every other trick here can save you money or save a thing you love. This one saves your house. And it is the one thing about steel wool almost no one is taught anymore, because the box does not shout it and the trick videos never mention it at all. The tool is wonderful, one cheap thing that does the work of a whole cabinet, but it is only wonderful in the hands of a man who respects what it is, and what it is, underneath all 20 of these tricks, is tinder. Store it dry and away from anything electric, clear of sparks and flame, and throw the used bits and oily rags in a metal can, always. Not the cleverest trick on this list, the plainest, and the only one that keeps every other one from costing you everything. None of it needed a shelf of products. That was the point, and the store aisle will never tell you. A man who understood one humble tool all the way down owed nothing to a cabinet of bottles. He floated the rust off his tools with oil and lifted the white ring out of the good table. He brewed the dark stain in a jar, knocked the shine off for paint, and packed the mouse gap tight with steel. And he did all of it while respecting the one hard truth, that the tool is tinder. That knowledge was never taken from us for our safety. If anything, the opposite, because the part about the fire is the part that got dropped first. We did not lose the steel wool. It is $1 a box on the bottom shelf of every hardware store. What we lost was the man who knew it completely, and an old neighbor said it best, standing over a crate of ashes. That is the tool, son. Respect it, or it burns you out.